Well, hello everyone. It's me, Rebecca, the Colorful Booknester over at Rivercrest Cottage, and I wanted to go ahead and have you join me while I figure out what I'm going to do with a particular page. Now, I posted this page back on Instagram, and this is what it looked like. So it's in this book, Rhapsody in the Forest. I posted that back on November 15th. It is December 9th when I'm filming this portion right now. So almost a month later, and needs to say the pages are not finished. But I thought I would go ahead and bring you in for a couple of the elements that are in the page, because when I got this book years ago, and I apologize, my thumb's all messed up. When I got this book years and years ago, like 4 years now, I went nuts for that picture, the corgi picture. So let me find it. Oh no, it's gone. All right, it's got to be in here somewhere. There we go. So here I am right now on the part that we're going to work on. And so let me just kind of, there we go. It's not the whole picture, but that's kind of it. So I've been working on this picture, and there's so many elements in this picture that are so intimidating for me. And one of the things is, when I opened this page all these years ago, I was so excited to see this page. I have had corgis in my life. I've had two, and it's kind of funny that there's two sitting on this page. And I thought, this will be one of the first ones that I color. And then I didn't. And there's a reason why. This is an incredibly intimidating page. And probably one of the biggest things that's intimidating is the stars in the sky, and then all of this light stuff where you're trying to make a glow and you're trying to make them look like candles and things. So if you look around the candles and around the lanterns and even up in the sky, there's a lot of circles that she has drawn in. And these circles were really, really like intimidating me. And I understand what she's trying to do is it's like a sparkle, it's like snow, it's kind of like that bokeh feel. And I've done bokeh before, but by drawing the actual circle in, you know, if you're looking at it around the candles, so let me bring you in. Here we go. We're going to go a little closer. So over here, let me get a pencil. So right here, you can see she has drawn in the circles themselves. And when you're doing light colors, like we're going to be doing here, I can't make those circles disappear. Now, in places, there you can see it because of the angle, right here, I can color that in and color over it probably dark enough. Like over here, I also, there's circles, but I've colored over them. Even the circle here, there's a circle in here, and I've just colored over it because I knew this was going to be really, really dark, and I'll keep going and making it darker. But if we go back there, this is all supposed to be white. So how am I going to make those circles kind of disappear? And one of the things is I don't do really well with fantasy. This is a very fantastical drawing, but yet there's a lot of realism in it. You know, the corgis look pretty real. The church looks real. You know, all of the drawings, the trees and all of that, they look real. But having that circle there was really distracting and bothering me. So that was one reason I didn't know what I was going to be doing. Plus all these light plays were really intimidating. I always envisioned that the church had stonework because she's already drawn these lines. I could have probably turned this into wood, but that just doesn't feel right because this feels rather English and stonework anyway. So adding stonework was going to be something that was going to be intimidating for me. And then probably one of the biggest things is this beautiful starry sky, but she has all these really crazy little stars drawn everywhere. And trying to make them look correct, I almost wish that, you know, I would probably, if I was doing this page again and I wasn't worried about the rest of the book, like the pages underneath it and stuff, I could almost see taking acrylic and just black acrylic paint and putting it all over and making those stars disappear. and then doing more of like where you flick the white paint on, that would have felt more natural to me, I think, and would have felt better than these big whimsical stars, particularly these ones here that are shooting stars. And I'm a little frustrated, and I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to do, but there's one right here in the middle of the church, and it's like, so I don't even know, because if I do try to use a Posca or any type of whiting out, it still changes the texture. So yeah, I'm just not sure what I'm going to do with that. So little things like that are the one thing for the artist I wish hadn't been done for a coloring book. But again, I get what the individual was trying to get kind of it to feel like and look like. So what are we going to work on today? Well, I figured what we would do is I also need to start showing you how I get this really deep sky. I have done an evening or night sky in a previous video. I believe it is it's a witch or something. If I can remember to go look, I will go look up the video and I'll put it down below. And that one is a more multi-dimensional sky. It has purples and blacks and kind of a real different feel. And this sky, you still have all those different depths, but it's supposed to be pretty much not one solid color, because skies are never solid, and I don't believe that they are. So what I wanted to show you was to get this deep, deep color so far that I'm doing is, again, as always, layers. So before I thought about doing a video of actually doing some of these elements, I had already put down one layer of blue, and it was funny because it's actually, everything else is a Prismacolor, but the first layer that I actually put down was the Schpirerr Farben, and I'm not sure why it was even available or what was going on, but I did one full layer all the way across in this blue, and that's number 053. So we've done one layer. Of course, if you look, it is, and let me bring you in a little bit more, see if we can get in a little bit. Make sure that we're focused. All right. It's done in my circles as I always do. And again, it's because overall I don't want the night sky to have lines if I can help it. Oh, sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on the sky. Like I said, we've done one initial coloring, very, very light, just starting to lay down colors. So this book is really interesting. So the first color that I'm going to go ahead and put in is going to be, let's see, where's it at? My indigo blue. So these are all Prismacolors going forward. That's what I've used on here so far, and that's number PC901, your indigo blue. And again, just, you start in with those circles, those ovals, and I just like them because I'm not putting striations in. I know some people don't care about that, and that's fine. We all color however we like. But when I do these tutorials, I've had people just asking me, how did I do this? How did I do that? And that's why I say exactly what I'm doing as far as, and I do hold the pencil kind of far back to keep it somewhat light, and I do kind of go on the side because eventually I get kind of a flat surface to be able to do my circles, and you don't get as many lines. So I'm just going to kind of go in and I'm going to fill this all in. Again, going back and overlapping where I've already been, because that's something. I am trying not to color the stars so that they don't have any color on them whatsoever, and then I'll go back in and try to figure out what I'm going to do with these crazy stars. It's such an odd thing, and I understand what the artist was doing, but to color these, like I said, I'd much rather have been able to, and I can't get dark enough to cover over them and do the splatter technique that I was telling you about with just my pencils. Again, I think that if I was willing to use the acrylic paint, but I'm just not willing to do that in this book. I don't want to use water mediums necessarily in this book because I don't want it to buckle and I want it to lie flat. That's my preference, but you could very easily cover this with acrylic paint and do what Dee Dee Willingham does, and then you color over that, or you add in more of like a splatter effect, and I think it would be spectacular. If I had an extra book, I might even try it. If I could have scanned this and put it on regular paper, I would have done that as well. I would have just painted right over all these stars. But we're going to take the challenge, and we're going to see what we can do to make the stars look kind of appropriate, I guess, in the picture, or maybe not stand out where they look. So they just seem cartoonish to me, I think. So as I said, this book this page has been very intimidating. I'm not happy with everything, how it's turned out, but it's coming out pretty well. I have enjoyed the page though, and I love this book, and I love the way Prismas go down in this. So this is that Rhapsody in Forest. Interesting thing, when I went out to do this page, when I first started it, I went out and did what I normally do, which is look for inspiration. In fact, you know what? I probably should show you guys what I did and what pictures I've used for inspiration. Because that whole process is one of the things I don't put pencil to paper on projects like this until I went out and had quite a lot of looking in inspiration and trying to find pictures that can show me how to do stuff. So how about I do that while I finish up this first layer, so when you come back this will all be done. Again, this is with my Indigo, and let's just go through my process.
So basically, what I like to do is go out and start looking for inspiration. And what I find one of my best inspirations are paintings. If you can find things that are already done in colored pencil, those are really great too, because of course it helps you really see where the lights and the darks. And when I found this picture, I was like, yep, this is what I'm thinking. The only thing is that the night sky needed to be a lot darker because of those stars that she's put in. I know I keep talking about them. I'm sorry. Obviously, they're really bothering me. Anyway, so you can see here about the stone and the light cast. And what it does is it gives me my rich colors. It tells me how dark I need to go for some shading. And so this is normally where I begin. And I keep this up while I'm starting to choose colors and as I'm going through processes. So like if you look here, some of the elements, number one, the light from the church and the stonework even though that's not quite the stonework that I'm going to be going for. My stonework is a lot lighter than that. But the glow, where you see where there's a little bit of orange at the bottom and then it glows out brighter at the top, that's kind of what I'm looking for out of most of my windows with the picture I'm working on now. And then just overall how many of the blues and how dark they are. And then looking at the tree. So right there in the middle is a lovely evergreen tree. And that fir tree is covered in snow, but underneath is exactly, is the evergreen itself. And that's exactly how it's depicted in her picture. So I can use that as an inspiration as well. And looking at the glow on the snow is kind of looking at how I might cast some of that light from the hanging lanterns, as well as the candles on the ground in the picture that we're coloring presently. And of course, that one light there is really great because that kind of makes me think of those lanterns that are hanging in the tree. So I strongly suggest that you go out and, like I said, I love looking at paintings. I love looking at already things that have been done in colored pencils. And then another one which really gives you a lot of color variance. You can see how they go into the shading and shadow. Is actually beautiful, high quality embroidery that's been done. Because they're using thread, you can see how they go from light to dark and how they make the shades, and you can almost match them with your pencils. So another great, it just, for me, is visually so much easier for me to pull things from. So I thought I would just share this with you. And now we're going to go on back to what we're doing. So now you know what's in my head as I'm working through this page.
So believe it or not, we've gotten another layer down. So I hope that that explanation kind of helped you out a little bit as to where I'm going with this picture and what I'm thinking of. And again, that's why I also want to get so many depth of color going in this night sky. The night sky is so prevalent in this whole thing and sets as the backdrop to all the lighting and all the, you know, the glow and all that, that I really wanted to get that deep dark color set up. So the next one we're going to go ahead and put on, so we did indigo, we just finished with the indigo blue. We're going to go in with the slate gray, if I can find it. Here we go. So here's the slate gray. It is PC 936. And again, going to go just back in there, and I keep up with my circles. And so this time, and you know, it's about medium pressure. I can go a little lighter if I wanted, but you know, I want to go ahead and start getting some down, but be very careful because we have at least 3 more layers, if not more, to go, and you don't want to start crushing the tooth and start making streaks and everything else. So we're just going to go over with this gray and start putting it in, and again, I kind of back it into whatever, if there's a line between the two, what I've already done and then what I'm doing now, I do back it into that a little bit so that we get all those colors kind of mixing and going forward. So the reason why I am, and I just mentioned this, why I am taking the time and the effort, and why I think the sky is you know, why are we just not doing it blue or black? Number one, nothing is ever solid black, particularly night skies. And I have to say, since living out where I'm away from light pollution, I really do see the difference in variances in light in the sky. And then if you look in pictures, very rarely is it all one color. I am thinking that this is a very clear night. That's why you see the stars. They're as huge as they are. It's a very clear night, so there's not so much that there's clouds and things, but you know, as we look around the sky, we will see portions of it seem lighter and other places are darker. In the previous video that I was mentioning, where I have done night skies and I added purples and blacks and stuff, that, I mean, it really changes the overall depth of the picture. I'm trying to limit the colors in this a little bit. I wanted everything to feel cool and crisp, and the only real warmth you get is from the lights from the candles and the lanterns and the glow from the church. Now, one thing I also do when I'm starting a picture out like this and there is glow, there's going to be lights, I went ahead and, as you can see, started putting in the light, but also putting in where I think it's going to cast onto the stonework as well, because having that little hint of yellow while you're still building up those other colors is kind of important, because usually there is a yellow glow cast even on those stones. They're not all one color. So when we get to working on the church, I'll probably explain that a little bit more. So here we go. I'm just going to go ahead and finish putting in, this is the slate gray. So that's going to be it for the slate gray, and then our next color that we're going to go ahead, now we're actually going to bring in some black. So I'm going to go over that whole area with black. Again, not pushing too hard yet. Black does put down a lot of pigment at one time, which is good, but again, black's not the color. The deepening and darkening is what the black's for. So going to go ahead and do that. All right, so the next one is going to be something that I can't pronounce, but it is one of my favorite blues, and it really starts adding a nice blue, and that is going to be PC208, and it's that Indanthrone blue. Okay, PC208. Okay, so next, as you can see, we're getting closer and closer, but there's really like this really deeper. And so this is where I just kind of start going either back through exactly what I've done, or I just start going in and going, okay, so let's bring in more of the indigo. Let's bring in, and what's interesting is I'm going to do one more thing of indigo, and then I'm going to do the slate gray again, because the slate gray really starts building, and you can start seeing where it's starting to blend. So let's do one more indigo, and then we'll come in with the slate gray. All right, so let me figure out, is it, we're gonna go in with that slate gray just a little bit. And it's funny how it really starts kind of melding all the colors a little bit together. It almost acts as a blender, which I'm really happy about, because you start losing, as you can tell, the whiteness. And I don't know if it's because this one's particularly soft or what it is, why it works, but it does, and I'm happy about that. So I'm going to continue on with the slate gray and over everything that I've been coloring. And you see how many layers, you know that I'm a layer person anyways. I just think that, you know, that's the way that I start getting some deeper depth. Now, I am probably going to, after this, try to come over. In fact, you know what? I want to do it right now because I want to see if I can get it just a little bit darker before I use that. I am going to come in with the black and, yeah, get it a little bit darker. So then, actually, I'm not going to do the slate gray. I'm going to do the black. So one of the things that I kind of also wanted to show you was I have a piece of like plastic, heavy duty plastic for me to rest my arm on, because as you do these layers, if you let your hand rub across, it will basically rub off onto your hands and clothing. So because we have so many layers at this point. So I'm just going in with that black noir at this point, trying to darken it up. Though I do kind of like that little difference. It almost looks like the moon might be up here, but I'm going to darken it down because I really want this to be a really dark sky. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and go in with that slate gray, which is PC 936, and go over this again. The slate gray kind of brings out the blues, which is really kind of cool. And so here we go. We're going to do that. So I think I'm at the point now that the only thing I might do is go over just to deepen it up with the PC 208, which is that Indanthrone blue. It kind of puts almost a purplish, I think if I remember right. Yeah, there's a little bit of a purple hue. So I'm going to go one more time over everything with this. And again, I'm doing the layers, and you'll see why in just a moment, because we are going to actually use Gamsol, which is like a odorless mineral spirits is what it is, to kind of blend these. As I've said in the past, I don't really use the blender pencils, and largely because they just always seem so scratchy, and I end up messing up the tooth. And what I like about, with the Gamsol, is that I can go ahead and I could blend things. Then if I wanted to come back once it's dried, I can actually add more on top. And sometimes I do, because maybe that isn't as dark, or it's not the blend that I wanted to get. It definitely takes layers to be able to do this, because you need to have the wax for it to start kind of blending. This also helps that if you develop kind of that bloom, what we call the wax bloom, which is everything looks like it has a slight milky appearance. It's not as bright. This process helps with that. So let me go ahead and get this one down, and then I will bring in the Gamsol and we'll see how that goes. So just so you can see, all I do is keep a little jar of a little bit of my Gamsol in what looks like a baby food jar. And I like it because it has a lid. I do have a cotton ball in there because I like to be able to kind of brush my brush off, if that makes sense. Because your brush can kind of start having pigment on it. And then if you go to another area or something, or if you have too much liquid on your brush, it can be a problem. So all I've been using is it's just a little brush here. It's very, very tiny. You can see, there we go. You probably can see it better. There we go. See how small it is. These are brushes that are used to paint, like, oh, I just went blank. Like toy models, whether it's cars or trains, or, you know, and I think a lot of model trainers use them as well for very, very, you know, precise painting. I like it because that means I can get into these little corners of these stars and kind of, and that way know that I'm not going to smear any of this over. But for the bigger areas, I'll show you in a second, I will be using a slightly bigger brush. So as you can tell, that's a bigger brush. And then I can still just dip it in. So again, all I do is dip it in, and then I just I'll go down into where there's actual odorless mineral spirits, and then I wipe it off of my little cotton ball, and then just come in here and you kind of start moving it around. And what it does is it helps the pigment move into any white spots that I've not been able to get. And I do this because otherwise I'd have to be pushing down with a blender or with another pencil, and of course that breaks the tooth. And so this way, when I'm kind of melting the pigment or the wax to get that pigment down in those, what little bit of white is still showing, so you can see there. I've done this a couple times on various pictures that I've done. I knew I was going to probably do it for this one just because I really wanted to make sure it's supposed to be a solid night sky, and I don't want any white from the paper kind of blending through or looking through. So right now, if you notice, you can see the delineation of between where I've already put the Gamsol and where I haven't. And you can see there's such a difference of how much deeper and richer the blue becomes when you kind of do this. And I think part of it is getting rid of any wax bloom that might have happened because I've done so many layers. But it's also when you start mixing those colors, you just get yet another color, and you get that not solid black like I was saying, and you just get that really rich blue, which I really like a lot. However, it doesn't mean I'm not going to go over it again. In fact, I started over in the other side. I went over with a Tombow, and I love the look because the Tombow still allows for these changes of colors. And you know me, I'm big about doing the whole put the pencil down and then enhance it with like a Tombow marker in this case. Now, if I had just started with the Tombow first, which is what most people do, they'll do the marker first. The thing about Tombows in this large of a space, they won't bleed through, which is good. That's why I like Tombows as much as I do. But they can still make kind of stripes, and you know that shouldn't be naturally occurring in a sky. There shouldn't be these stripes. So it would make kind of those markings between putting down one. But when I do it over the wax, since I've built up kind of a resist with the pencils, I'm sorry, the wax pigment, it kind of keeps them where they don't dry and get absorbed in the paper as quick. So what's cool is you really get this nice smooth layer of color, and I think that's been great. But it has so much to do. Again, I've put a lot of layers down beforehand. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here in this corner because I didn't finish blending this with my Gamsol. I was kind of waiting. Here we go. Let me just show you. So if I kind of flip this page over, you can, hopefully see, there you go. So you can see here, there's some moisture, but when it dries, it'll be completely, see that? It'll be completely clear. So it's almost like you're just using a form of like alcohol, and it's rubbing alcohol or something, and it's kind of evaporating. I mean, this is different than that. But that's what I like about it. When I get done, you won't be able to see it on the other side. And in this book, that's important to me because I don't want to ruin the picture on the other side.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up with just the night sky. You can see we have a lot more to do. I hope you enjoyed this, and it is a way just to give different depth to your skies. Go out and take a look at them, and they're never really just a flat black, especially when it's really, really clear and crisp outside, which is what I envision for this picture. The next time, whenever I come on for part 2, it is going to be doing the stonework on the side there of the church. And so if you're interested in that, please look forward to part 2 of the Twilight Winter Corgis picture. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. And as I always say, keep coloring those pages. Bye for now.